Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 72 of Buds and Blue Jays. This is your place for all things Toronto Blue Jays related. I'm your host, Jesse Burrell, and I am joined, as always, by my usual co-host, Riley McConnell. And today on our show, the winter meetings came and they went, and the Blue Jays did nothing? What? We'll talk about that. We'll have our thoughts on that. And plus, what comes next? And we'll touch on some of the rumors that came out of the winter meetings and see where this goes from here. But first, Riley, two questions. One, how are you, man? What's going on? And two, if I would have told you there would be over $2 billion spent in the winter meetings and free agent contracts handed out, and the Blue Jays did zero of it, what would your response be?
So let's skip the pleasantries, Mr. Burrow. I
Okay.
myself am quite good, actually. But to dive right into it, man, I mean, there were some big names on the board for free agency, and I mean, let's just cut right to it. We didn't go after anyone. We didn't acquire a bullpen arm. We didn't acquire an outfielder. We didn't acquire anything. I mean, I would say that, we could have been here talking about, we didn't acquire anything substantial that would help us win games. We didn't get anything, man. And that's the problem with this. And I have a huge gripe with this, actually. It's almost like an empty promise from our front office. They say we've got all this money and we're going to put it in, but the big boys are off the board, Jesse. The big boys are off the board. The meat of the free agency has been signed by now, and we're kind of, not bottom of the barrel, but we need to make a move and make an impact move fairly soon. I mean, me as a Jays fan, Jesse, you as well, man, they're getting a little restless here. I know that baseball is over, but this is still a very important time, man, to get your team constructed and get ready for 2023, man.
There are still some high impact names on the board. We will touch on those names a little later in the episode to see if they're still fit. But the the options that the Blue Jays have seem to have kind of disappeared. They're kind of almost forced now to go in one direction. But Riley, before we dive deep into it, what's your concern level on what the Blue Jays did at the winter meeting? Are you in panic mode yet? Rate it on 1 to 10 what your panic level is for this offseason so far.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, until we start spring training, your panic level really can't get too high. Moves can definitely still be made at any point, yes. But still, Jesse, I mean, you watch other teams. We're competing here, right? This isn't a 4-team, 5-team leagues. There are 29 other teams that are either competing, and we know the non-competitors, whatever. But the teams that are competitors have gone out and they have made some pretty big moves. And I would like to consider our Jays, and they are a big competitive ball club and have immaculate potential for the 2023 years. And it would have just really helped to get a really high-end player. I mean, I'm not talking about an Aaron Judge. I'm not talking about a Trey Turner, but some little piece to start the ball rolling. Our ball is still at the top of the hill, while there are a numerous amount of teams around the league that had made moves and are almost continuing to make moves still in the motion to sign players, make trades, things like that. And I feel like, yes, there's speculations at transactions and signings, but we haven't budged. I mean, talk is cheap, man. I want to see some action. I don't know about you, man. It would really help to see, something get the ball rolling here.
Hey, let's not panic too much. This is the first time the winter meetings have been held in person since 2019. And in 2019, the Blue Jays' big signing at the winter meetings was Tanner Roark. And we know how well that turned out. For what it's worth, though, they did lay the groundwork on a Hyun-Jin Ryu deal that winter meeting. So maybe when the Blue Jays do end up acquiring a player later this offseason, we'll look back at this and say the groundwork that was done at the winter meetings was really helped set up about that. And let's not forget, Riley, 2 years ago, the Blue Jays were finishing second place on all these free agents, and everyone was freaking out about, well, when are we going to do something? We got to get somebody. We got to do something. Well, turns out we ended up signing George Springer that offseason, and that seemed to have worked out okay so far. So panic level still very low, still a lot to go, but yeah, a lot of offseason left, and we'll see what our Blue Jays do.
Absolutely, man. I mean, until spring training starts, my level of concern won't be. It's just, you're anticipating, you're getting a little bit anxious. It's kind of a nail biting thing. You see these big players go to other ball clubs, and, it's the what could have been. Well, we'll never know, Jesse, but I'm sure that, I mean, there has to be a move made. I'm certain there will be a move made. I don't think it's going to be tonight, and I doubt it's going to be tomorrow, but at some point we will more than likely be signing a starting pitcher and an outfielder. I'm certain of that.
Hopefully soon, man. We need some more content to talk about on this show. But before we wait for that, Riley, let's go through some of the big signings, the big trades that were made, the acquisitions that happened around Major League Baseball, and some of the rumors that some of the players that the Blue Jays had interest in, and to see what this kind of tells us about the Blue Jays' plans this winter and who are the guys that are targeting. And let's start with this guy, Riley. Andrew Heaney. It was reported quite frequently over the past week that the Blue Jays were interested in Andrew Heaney. You and I talked about him last week, how we thought the fit might be. We love the strikeout potential. We love all this thing that they can have. And Ross Atkins did mention before going into this winter meetings that he was looking for a combination of durability and upside in a starter. But he also mentioned, Riley, playoff potential, which was a new term that you didn't really hear him meaning. My interpretation of that quote is he was looking for a guy that can get strikeouts because strikeouts matter so much more in the postseason. So it makes a lot of sense that the Blue Jays were interested in Andrew Heaney. Now, he ended up signing for 2 years for Texas with $25 million. And it was reportedly offered that the Jays offered more guaranteed money to Andrew Heaney to get him to come to Toronto. But ultimately, hey, the guy's earned his right as a free agent. He gets to choose his destination. You know, maybe he just likes the heat down in Texas. Maybe he didn't want to come to Canada. Maybe he just really likes Jack Daniels, Riley. But Andrew Heaney chose Texas over coming to the Toronto Blue Jays, and he has that right, I suppose.
I mean, I can see it. You put in your service time. You reach free agency. You can sign with whoever you want, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd take a pay cut to not play for the Yankees. That's me personally. I'd take a minor league deal with their short season A ball. Who am I kidding? But however, you can't blame guys for going other places. He never had anything to do with the Blue Jays association to begin with. It's his right. He can choose where he wants to play. It just keeps our door open for new opportunity. I mean, he's playing in the American League. I'm sure he's going to do well. He's got another good new ace on that staff, so I'm sure he can learn some things and do some stuff with his game. But again, we won't know until we hit the field and play that first series against Texas, how that's going to affect us personally. But yeah, Andrew Heaney, a guy with a lot of upside, not a Toronto Blue Jay. At the end of the day, Jesse, I don't think him not coming to the Blue Jays hurts us a tremendous amount, though.
There was a lot of risk with Heaney, right? That was the thing. Like the potential could be sky high. This guy could turn out to a strikeout machine. He could be probably what Robbie Ray was for us in the 2021 season. But the downside is also like Yusei Kikuchi level bad. So it's a big swing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, which is probably the more likely outcome here, I think we might be okay filling those rotation spots with somebody else. But I will say it does seem interesting that the Blue Jays were targeting this type of pitcher quite heavily and that they really seemed like they wanted Andrew Heaney. So the Jays are trying to get somebody here. It just won't be Andrew Heaney.
I mean, you can try and try and try. I mean, the fact that we didn't learn him or land him is a bit concerning. The more we kind of learn about how this offseason goes, and what we've learned so far is we're not just going to dump a ton of money into the first thing that moves. I mean, we are being quite strategic
for the Blue Jays.
The positive thing to take away is we're not just going to sink money into anybody, which, you know what, I don't hate the reserve tactic. As a Jays fan, you want to see results. The statistician in my head, the front office version to me is like, you know what, it's probably not the worst thing, to be patient. Let's find the right fit. Let's see where other guys land, maybe do some matchup things, see what potential, trades lie ahead and everything like that. I mean, it's not a bad thing, just the restlessness of it all. I mean, hey, it's, partway through December right now. There's still lots of times to make these moves.
Let's go on to some other players that the Blue Jays did have interest in. And this one is a guy that the Blue Jays have had interest in the past. And that is Kyle Gibson, played for the Phillies last year. He ended up signing in Baltimore for a 1-year, $10 million deal, which is pretty similar AAV with what we paid Yusei Kikuchi last year. The Jays had interest in Kyle Gibson back in 2019 and seemed to be the runner-up here, offering the exact same deal that he ended up choosing Baltimore instead of Toronto. But unlike Andrew Heaney, Riley, I'm really not upset that we didn't end up with Kyle Gibson. Frankly, I don't think he's that good. He does have some individual pitches that do grade out well and whatnot, but I remember when the Jays went to Philadelphia last year, we scored 7 earned runs off Kyle Gibson. Matt Chapman took him deep for a 3-run home run. Remember that last year. And it's just, I'm out on Kyle Gibson. I hope he's good in Baltimore, but not too good. And I kind of hope the Jays crush him a little more. And I'm glad we avoided this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're a pitcher, you want to play for a team where you possibly get wins, and wins is run support. And I feel like, as good as, a guy like Adley Rushman could be, or Ryan Mountcastle could be, I think that it's a no-brainer. If you want wins, come to Toronto, because we're going to score a bunch of those. I mean, you could have a 4.5 earned run average, or not 4 or 5, 4.5, whatever earned run average, and still, collect some W's. But when your team's backing you up with 2 runs or 3 runs, it's a little bit more difficult. But hey, at the end of the day, Jess, you said it, man. I think that Gibson is a middle of the road pitcher, a number 3 arm for rotation.
Honestly, at best.
At best. For sure. So the fact that we didn't get him, and we still can, for $10 million, I'm not hating that at all. We do have the left-hander in Kikuchi. I feel like it can't be as bad as it was last year, right? I just feel we got to, if we're going for a pitcher, we got to get a for sure thing, and Gibson not a for sure thing.
Yeah, I agree. Another name that the Blue Jays had interest in, that Riley, that you and I talked a lot about on this podcast in episodes past, was Cody Bellinger. I was really in on Cody Bellinger, but he ended up signing a 1-year, $17.5 million contract. So pretty much what he would have got if he accepted the qualifying offer from the Dodgers before they released him. The Jays were known to offer Bellinger a multi-year deal, which makes us think they knew what it took to fix him, or at least had an honest attempt on how to fix Cody Bellinger. They still believe in the guy. But Scott Boras and him decided a 1-year deal is what they wanted. They want to rebuild value. I do think it would have been a great fit here, kind of like Marcus Semien was in his year here, and even like Robbie Ray before we let him go. But unfortunately, we did not end up getting Cody Bellinger, and I really hope this move does not come back to bite us in the butt.
I don't think it will, Jesse. I mean, hey, Cody Bellinger could go out next year and play some fantastic ball. And then there's the off chance that Cody Bellinger has a 215 average and hits 12 home runs. I mean, if we're unsure of what we were going to get with Bellinger, I mean, hey, there are still other lefty outfield bats that we could go after.
Yep.
I'm sure Bellinger won't be as bad as he was the last couple of years. That's just my thought. I'm a Cody Bellinger kind of guy. I'm a little bit, what could have been with him if he could have made a great stint with the Blue Jays. I think that would have been awesome. I mean, the Rogers Center is a hitter's ballpark, and I think Bellinger has that power to be an elite hitter in the MLB. So what could have been, we will never know. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't break our backs, Jesse.
So those were the 3 big names that have been heavily linked to the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll have some other names going on here that had been somewhat linked, or at least the Jays had checked in on, that ultimately we didn't end up signing. And the first one is Jameson Taillon, who ended up signing a 4-year, $68 million contract with the Chicago Cubs. There was buzz, especially after Justin Verlander and Andrew Heaney went off the board, that the Jays might be shifting their attention towards Taillon. But I think it was too little too late. Other teams had already laid the groundwork and stuff for a signing here. And ultimately, he's gone off to Chicago, 4 years, $68 million. Kind of steep, I guess, but pitch money was going off the crazy, and everyone was getting paid at the winter meetings. So I don't really have many thoughts on Taillon. Riley, do you have anything quick?
I mean, it's he's going to a Chicago team. I always thought that the Central divisions were fairly weak, and I guess fairly weak as far as pitching. Chicago Cubs always have had good pitchers in the past, maybe not in recent memory, really. But I mean, good for him. This is a move that probably won't bite us as well. Taillon obviously, has already played in the National League Central, so maybe some interesting things there. A lot of different divisional shifts. We'll get more into guys, players reuniting, in fact, and maybe playing in the same division, rival teams, even as their debut teams, which is kind of cool. But Taillon going there, you know what? In a Cubs uniform, I'm sure anyone looks good in a Cubs uniform. So sure. He'll do fine.
I agree. 2 of the big names, Riley, the big name pitchers that went out, Jacob deGrom and Justin Verlander. And these were some of the guys I was really hoping the Jays would go for on a high AAV deal. They both got massive contracts, man. Jacob deGrom got 5 years, $185 million with an option for another year. Verlander signed 2 years, $86.667, which could turn into a player option if he meets inning pitch requirements. And there were reports that the Jays did make a very sizable offer to Justin Verlander. We liked him last time, 2 years ago, when he was a free agent. Ultimately, he chose to go back to Houston instead of coming to Toronto. But it does give you a glimpse, Riley, of how much money the Jays are actually willing to go forward. I think it kind of shows that they aren't afraid of the CBT. Like, they are prepared to dump tons of money into a player if it happens, which I think makes it a little more concerning. We didn't really end up with one of these top high-end guys. And I think it really kind of almost forces our hand to put money towards one of these high-impact guys that are left that we'll get to a little later in this episode.
I think, and to add on to that last line, Jesse, and maybe pay a little bit less and maybe get one or two of those high-impact players that aren't that aren't a DeGrom, that aren't a Verlander. But listen, I mean, you're talking Justin Verlander here. I mean, this guy came off a Cy Young season in the twilight of his career, or who knows? I mean, he is probably this decade's, this centuries, in fact, in the 2000s, is a kind of a Nolan Ryan comp in a way. I mean, he's going to pitch for a team that has elite staff, and that's even without Jake DeGrom. He's going back with his Detroit Tigers teammate Max Scherzer, and those two old coots are going to absolutely tear up the NL or the NL East this year. I'm absolutely sure of that. And then DeGrom going to Texas. I mean, it is what it is. See, this move could bite us a little bit, but we had no control over this.
Yeah, obviously. 5 years is a lot.
But you know what? Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe first year for a new team. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he isn't the same Jake DeGrom. We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have liked DeGrom, but 5 years for a guy, you know, when he pitches, he's the best in the game. But that injury risk is real for DeGrom, and I hope he stays on the field. Watching Jacob DeGrom pitch is one of my favorite things I like to do. I hope we get a lot of DeGrom versus Shohei Ohtani matchups this summer. I can't wait for that. But hopefully it doesn't hurt the Blue Jays too much is what I'm getting at here. Another name that the Blue Jays had reportedly had interest in was a reliever, Riley, and this name kind of surprised me. I knew the Blue Jays were going to be active on run prevention, and when this guy ended up signing a 2-year, $36 million with the Boston Red Sox, reports came out that the Blue Jays were in on him too, and that is Kenley Jansen, Riley. We didn't talk about him much because I didn't think, well, I mean, me personally, I didn't think there was much of a chance that the Blue Jays would go after this guy at all, but Riley, do you have any takeaways about your thoughts on the Blue Jays' interest towards getting Kenley Jansen on this team?
I mean, I can see it. You want to stack your bullpen as much as possible. If you want to win games in probably the most budgetable and cost efficient way, it's to have a good bullpen and not to blow games. Relief pitchers are more apt to cost you less money than a starting pitcher or a really good positional player. Kenley Jansen, obviously noted longtime closer of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and has slowed down, I would say, a little bit. But Kenley Jansen is still a top relief arm in this league, and now he's in the same division pitching for what is a weaker Red Sox team. Now, why he wanted to go to why you wanted to go to Boston? I mean, could it be he just wanted? I mean, is he really a Red Sox fan? Just wanted to be Boston's closer, you know, something like that. Walk out, do the 9th inning trot at Fenway. I don't know. I don't feel like. Listen, we're a long time where Boston was a really good team. I mean, I don't feel like they're coming into 2023 as strong as past years and even last year. It doesn't really concern me. I don't know if he's going to receive a lot of because assuming how it breaks down, how they add to the depth chart, I can see him being, I don't know if he'll be their primary closer or just a setup guy, but I mean, I assume he's going to get a lot of innings, and I'm sure that we'll face him. And it's an arm that a lot of Jays players have not seen. Kenley Jansen, a National League of relief pitcher. So it'd be interesting because I quite like Kenley Jansen. He's got probably one of the best cut fastballs in the MLB. That thing has great movement. I don't think it's going to bite us too much, though, because I think when we play the Red Sox, there's not going to be a lot of save opportunities. He's maybe going to come in when he's down 6-2 and maybe shut us down for an inning. Who knows? It's not going to be anything crazy, Jesse.
I'm already picturing a Matt Chapman walk-off 2-run home run against Kenley Jansen this year, and I can't wait for it. I have a thought on the bullpen, though. I thought it was very interesting that the Blue Jays were trying to add another bullpen arm here, because I think their bullpen is actually pretty good. And I know we talked a lot about the bullpen collapse during the wild card series there, where our bullpen really did let us down. But on paper, the Blue Jays actually do have a really good bullpen. Like Jordan Romano is one of the best closers in the game. Jimmy Garcia was exceptional last year. Anthony Bass was amazing with the Marlins and actually was pretty good aside for 1 or 2 bad outings here with the Blue Jays. And then you got other guys. Tim Meza was still quite effective with this team. Remember, we just signed Eric Swanson, who had an ERA around 1. And let's not forget, like, if we sign more starting pitchers, a guy like Yusei Kikuchi is probably going to end up in our bullpen as like a swingman. And the Jays, I can't go an episode without mentioning this name, Riley, but Nate Pearson is probably going to pitch in the bullpen for this team. So I think the Blue Jays do have options. And one of our better prospects, Yasver Zuleta, is probably going to be major league ready this year. He probably fits in the bullpen. Like, I think we almost are running into a situation where we have too many guys for not enough spots. Zach Pop, another one too, who I think is going to be really good for this team. So the bullpen interest kind of surprised me.
I mean, for sure, Jesse. But I like it all depends. The swing move for Kikuchi. I mean, we definitely got to make a move at starting pitcher for that to happen. Exactly. Because as of right now, it looks like Yusei Kikuchi is in the starting rotation. However, you cannot have too many good bullpen arms. There are still relief pitchers that have options that can be sent down. So I do not hate that, because what I do hate, Jesse, is when our bullpen does blow games and blow big games and blow them really bad, like blow games so bad that it makes you want to cry in your seat. That's what happened in our October baseball. They do hurt, and they are so preventable. Like the old commercials, like you can prevent forest fires. You can prevent blown bullpen games, man. It's not that hard. We just got to I think we have the right guys to do it, honestly. I think Swanson was a great move. I still think, though, that we need to fill that spot we gave up. That in my head right now is really bugging me. I didn't say it when we were talking about guys. I mentioned corner outfielder. I'm still a little bit cheesed we had to dump Taillon to the Mariners to get this guy in the prospect there. But, you know, until that spot gets filled, our depth chart looks like Whit Merrifield in center or right field. And I would really prefer another bat, perhaps a lefty bat, to play center or at least right field, Jesse. I don't know about you, man.
Yeah, it sounds right, because I think I want Whit Merrifield starting at second base for this team, and I want somebody deeper with more of an offensive impact. I will say, flashing back, looking at the Teoscar Hernandez trade now, doesn't it seem kind of silly that the Blue Jays freed up $14.1 million because they wanted to spend some money on a high-impact player, and they haven't. And the $14 million seems kind of crazy with all the money that was going out around here. Like maybe 14. If you were to give Teoscar Hernandez $14 million for 1 year, I think a lot of teams would sign up for that, especially with what free agent outfielders are getting this and during this winter meetings time. So I don't want to say it's a mistake yet, because, you know, he was 1 year away from free agency. We were probably going to let him walk for nothing, but it's getting more sour on me as the time goes on here.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. And I mean, you can pretty much put it in the title of this podcast. Are the Blue Jays worse? And I that's how I feel a little bit with Taillon gone and a spot not filled. It's that impatience, man. And that is a move that can certainly come back to haunt us, as we saw the Mariners in our wild card series, Jesse. So it's some food for thought there. There are some outfielder names still out there, but we're sitting here and it's December the 8th, and we still haven't filled that spot yet. That void is still there.
You know, going back onto projections, kind of going off on a little tangent here. Fangraphs released their 2023 projected win percentage as of how the rosters look this morning, right? So this is after the Bogart signing, after the Judge signing. With the current players the Blue Jays have on pace right now, they projected them for a .540 winning percentage, which is about 87 wins next year. But that is behind the Yankees, behind the Astros, and behind the Rays. So it's looking right now the Blue Jays would be third in their division, and we need more than that. We need more. They trust our offense. They think our offense is going to be second in runs scored, but we're going to be about league average in runs against. So more work needs to be done, honestly, because these are the core years of the Toronto Blue Jays. These are the years we need to pick up. Well, we have Vladdy. Well, we have Manoah. Well, we have Kirk. Well, we have Bo. That we need to take a shot at the World Series. And if this is the roster we're running, it's not good enough.
Yep, it's win now mode for us Blue Jays fans. It should be the same for the Blue Jays front office. It should have been a no-brainer. The Taillon trade should have got the ball rolling. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Yes, you captured a phenomenal right-handed relief pitcher in Eric Swanson. There's no doubt about that. He had a great year. You give him more innings, I don't know what's going to happen, but there's no doubt about it that he has a lot of upside and a lot of talent. So does Taillon. Okay, so you didn't want to just let him walk to free agency. So you cut his deal short by a year essentially, but you free up a lot of money in the making. That money's still on the board. And like Roger said, if they're willing to spend money, there is not a better spot to fill right now. You can, take that 14, turn it into 25. Flip the bill for a pitcher that's worth 12.5 and a position player, a corner outfielder that's worth 12.5. That's what I'm doing with that money. And I've only gone over $10 million, which I don't know if Roger said spend money. $10 million is absolute. Hey, in 2004, $10 million is a lot of money. Yeah. In this day and age for baseball, with the ridiculous contracts being handed out left, right, and center to these guys that don't even have 6 years of MLB service. I mean, the least we can do, Jesse, is absolutely lock someone down, give them a phenomenal offer. You don't have to give them 10 years, but give them a juicy 4 or 5 year deal and lock that guy down, because our window still goes 5 years, Jesse.
2026.
It's this. So 2023, 4, 5, 6. That's 4 years.
Yeah.
Maybe we go. Maybe we go older than in 2027 or whatever, but there's still time. But absolute no brainer. And I think that we were let down a little bit by not getting a top end talent out of this. I'm a little disappointed at that. I'm not extremely worried. It just would have been nice, Jesse, to have a lock. I mean, there's still a lot of question marks up in the air, man. And I'm not a fan of that right now. I know that, pitchers and catchers don't report for another, I think we're less than 100 days now or whatever. And spring training is, hey, baseball is a year-long thing, man. It
sure is.
It's 365, man. There's no question about it. And as an individual who follows transactions in baseball, seeing these names go to other clubs where we know we've given them kind of a nibble or a taste. We should have absolutely came in with a staple deal and locked a guy down.
So, Riley, let's talk about how the Blue Jays are going to use some of that money now, because we've clearly established the Blue Jays have a ton of money to spend, and they're kind of running out of names of guys they could spend it on. The first one, Riley, was Cody Bellinger. We've talked a lot about his pitch mix, what he might bring. I know we were kind of hit and miss about whether or not he's going to have success over on the North American side, but the recent reports are, yes, the Blue Jays have done their homework on him. They know what he's probably going to project like, but he has checked in with 6 or 7 teams and, quote, in only one country. So it sounds like he won't end up in the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's, for now, cross that name off the list, because the Blue Jays can always go back and rethink about it. But let's assume we're not going to spend money on Cody Bellinger. You follow me so far?
Gotcha.
Okay, next guy on the list is Brandon Nimmo, and I think this is the one that a lot of Blue Jays fans are kind of griping for. He's really the only high-end outfielder left. The fit is incredible, left-handed. We did an episode where we talked about Brandon Nimmo and what we thought about the team, but I will say with the caveat, Riley, Ben Nicholson-Smith doesn't think Brandon Nimmo is going to happen. And since Aaron Judge was close to signing with the Giants, but then ultimately didn't, he thinks the Giants are the front runners right now to sign Brandon Nimmo. So again, unless the Jays overpay or sweeten their pitch or do something, it doesn't sound like Brandon Nimmo is going to be a Toronto Blue Jay either. So those two guys, Riley, Cody Bellinger, Brandon Nimmo, a thought?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Senga is whatever. Hasn't pitched on an MLB mound. Whatever. Take that out of the equation for right now, Jesse, because that's a whole other beast. Is a guy coming internationally. But yeah, you got an on-base machine like Nimmo who can play a great outfield and is a lefty bat. And on-base guys is what we need. We got all the power. We got all the power hitters in the lineup we need. I think even without Teoscar Hernandez, we really do. And adding Brandon Nimmo to this lineup of already great power hitters, adding an elite contact, an elite plate visionist at the plate, if you will, is going to do awesome. And he's a plus on defense ahead of Teo. I mean, Teo's definitely not a Gold Glover, and neither is Nimmo, but he still gives us more winning probability defensively. I mean, let's go back to Senga for a second. If we sink in a spot in the rotation and reserve it for him, it can go one of two ways. It can go either really well or not really well. and that's money wasted. I would for sure rather go with a for sure thing on the mound, Jesse. I mean, we have already question marks starting next season, that being Jose Barrios and possibly Yusei Kikuchi. There are two kind of question marks there. I don't want to add a third into the equation. We've got two elite throwers at the top of our rotation. I want to just add a complimentary guy, perhaps maybe a former ace or an aspiring ace, not someone who is a possible a fireballer, a possible guy that has a 3 ERA. I want a for sure guy. I would take a guy with a whip around 1.3 and a 4 ERA that's gonna
just pitch innings, right?
He's going to eat innings. He's going to more often than not win you ball games. Not going to go the distance, but six innings for sure. That's what this team needs, man, as far as that goes.
You know what player kind of fits that mold that you've just described there? Ross Stripling. Like, what the hell?
Now, I know. Jesse, I know, man. Hey, we had this whole discussion about it. And I mean, that seemed like a no-brainer too, but hey, whatever happens.
John Schneider was actually asked about the chance of bringing Ross Stripling back, and he said, quote, obviously we'd love to have him back. Like any team that's trying to win, we've been active in the pitching talk. So I think the longer the Jays go without signing up somebody, it means Ross Stripling might be more likely to come back. But Riley, the top pitching name on the market is Carlos Rodon. And, sense around the industry, the Jays have been checking in on pitchers, but Scott Boras himself said the Jays seemed more interested on their hitters, which means Carlos Rodon, a Scott Boras client, the Blue Jays probably haven't checked in on him either. So I don't think Carlos Rodon's going to end up a Blue Jay. Riley, just real quick, 60 seconds or less. Carlos Rodon, is he going to fit on this team?
I mean, I liked him when he pitched for the White Sox. I thought he had an amazing year for the Giants. I mean, I think that he's at the top of his game in 2022. That's his career year right there, in my opinion. I don't think he can replicate that. I still think he's a great arm. He's an ace on a lot of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. There were 3 more names the Blue Jays left the winter meetings with that kind of had interest when. 2, Michael Conforto, a guy who when we started the offseason, I was kind of like, I don't think I want him. But now as our options are kind of running thin, things are going out the door, I'm opening myself up to Michael Conforto more. Before the last season he played, before he got injured, he actually had 2 seasons of above 125 WRC plus. There is some power here. And he won't break the bank, even though the Blue Jays do have money to spend. So I think they are interested in Michael Conforto, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up a Toronto Blue Jay. And the other 2 names are Michael Brantley. Now, Ben Nicholson-Smith reported the Jays had interest in Brantley. Remember when he was almost a Blue Jay 2 years ago? I personally don't see the fit, don't love the defense. The bat-to-ball skills are still there, but they're kind of declining lately, and I don't think they want to run him out as a DH every day. And Alex Reyes is the last name, Riley, another guy who's been linked to the Toronto Blue Jays. Still has massive strikeout stuff. He throws really hard, but he could be one of these guys that we've talked about a lot. The upside's insanely high, but the floor is insanely low, and he might not stick. So those 3 names, Riley: Michael Conforto, Michael Brantley, and Alex Reyes. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's start with Brantley, a guy who I've obviously seen more than the other 2. Brantley does have elite contact, or did at some point. His bat-to-ball skills, left-handed bat as a left fielder was fantastic. He's in the twilight of his career. And yeah, you said it, Jesse, not really a top fit. Alex Reyes is a real interesting one. This guy throws extremely hard, has extremely high upside. But Jesse, at this point, I really do like a for sure thing in the bullpen, and it's probably not him. I feel really good about Swanson. Had this deal been kind of flipped around and we didn't have we had Reyes instead of Swanson, I would feel a little bit unsettled on that. I think that we're fine without him. And Michael Conforto, I mean, this is a guy, local broadcast television saw him quite a bit for the Mets as an outfielder. Yep. I thought he did quite well. This is another guy with good bat to ball skills as a lefty bat, kind of injury struck, whatever. I mean, he still has a lot of MLB time left. I mean, he's not a young guy. He's around 30, I would have to think. But yeah, if he lands with the Jays, won't break the bank. Is he going to be our starting right fielder? I mean, there's a possibility, but there are still other options as well.
Yeah, and the Jays are going to do something, right? If we're having this conversation in March that the Jays haven't done this, then it's a problem, but there is still time. Riley, from the free agency, let's talk trades. And the big one was Brian Reynolds out of Pittsburgh demanding a trade. John Paul Morosi actually tweeted that the fit for the Toronto Blue Jays would be incredible. And Riley, out of all the names left, I think if we could find a way to get Brian Reynolds without giving up too much, is going to be quite good. Now, there's some beef going around that his defense wasn't that good. I will say Bryan Reynolds got unlucky as a defender last year. In fact, StatCast grades every defensive play as a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Obviously, the 5 stars are like your catch probability is like 5%. Like you have to make an extremely amazing athletic play to get those. And 1 stars, you're like your routine can of corn, fly ball hit right at you. Bryan Reynolds only had 3-star attempts last year. So either every ball hit to him was either routine, can of corn, or it was like an extremely hard, difficult play to make. And if he's getting more difficult plays, it's going to be tougher for him to grade out defensively. So I do think the defensive numbers will step up for him next year. Plus, switch hitter. Plus, good bat-to-ball skills, which the Blue Jays have been targeting all offseason. The only problem here, Riley, is I don't know if Pittsburgh is going to want to trade him. Last year, when they tried to trade him, Seattle was inquiring about him, and they asked for Julio Rodriguez in return. So maybe the price is sky high for Bryan Reynolds. But now that the player has publicly demanded a trade, I do think his value will go down now, and there is a chance the Blue Jays could sweep in here without having to give up too much prospect pedigree to get Bryan Reynolds on the team.
I mean, let's hope so. Let's hope it's not an Orelvis Martino or Ricky Tiedemann. Let's hope it's not something like that.
Tiedemann's got to be untouchable, man. Like he can't be going anywhere.
Listen, we don't have Woods Richardson. We don't have Austin Martin. I mean, not that Gunnar Hoagland and Zach Logue were exceptionally high-end prospects. Maybe Gunnar Hoagland could be quite a good pitcher one day. I mean, we've done that dance already. Mm-hmm. And I mean, unless we can kind of get a sweet deal on it, it won't be the right deal. I mean, we can't sell the entire farm. We've done that kind of, Jesse, over the past couple of years, and I'm not a fan of it, but this is the right time. The Jays did give up the right pieces to get in the right guys and make the right transactions. I believe the Brios at the time was a great deal, and the same with the Matt Chapman deal. And so we're looking at a team like Pittsburgh. We fleeced the Athletics.
Oh, that trade looks great in hindsight now. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can more or less do the same thing with the Pirates, that would be amazing. But that would be kind of on those terms. I think that would be the right thing. I don't want to see a high-end guy go.
One more takeaway from the winter meetings that happened here is that the St. Louis Cardinals signed a catcher. They signed Wilson Contreras. And Riley, I was drawing up all these things because the Blue Jays and the Cardinals made so much sense on a trade for a catcher because they have all this outfield surplus. The Blue Jays have all this catching depth. A match seemed to be made, but ultimately they decided to go with the free agent route and spend money and keep on to their outfielders. So my question is now, Riley, like what's next? The Blue Jays are still adamant that we're going to trade one of these 3 catchers. And where are we going to send them? San Diego, they're clearly going all in. They're pushing in all their chips. They could use an upgrade at catcher. Milwaukee could use a guy with Omar Narvaez being a free agent, but they might start to sell. There are rumors about that in the Brewers. Maybe they don't want to add a guy. The White Sox with Grandal, he was terrible last year. They're a team trying to win. Cleveland's a natural fit. They want a guy that can go in with Bo Naylor. Houston, who just was runner-up to Wilson Contreras, they didn't get a guy. They could use a guy like Danny Jansen to help them win a World Series. And Minnesota, they offered a contract to Christian Vazquez, so they're clearly still interested. And there's just a list there. Arizona is another one that could take a catcher here, and they have some good outfielders surplus. So where do you think the Blue Jays go now to try to trade one of their 3 catchers?
I mean, for sure, my mind hasn't changed a bit on who that piece is, sadly. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Alejandro Kirk is the untouchable one in this thruple of catchers. I mean, look, you can look at Danny Jansen and say that he had a great season, a great injury-ridden season, and that Danny Jansen is probably at the highest value he will be right now, unless he pops up and has another great year. And Gabriel Moreno is the real question mark. Do we want to have basically roll between 2 starting catchers? Because we know Kirk can't catch every day, and we know Jansen is a formidable force behind the plate. But really, it's one of those things where Gabriel Moreno is a very interesting one because he showed very early on for his cup of coffee, if you want to call it that. I mean, he's coming for a refill next year. I have no doubt in my mind that when we start this year, that Gabriel Moreno will be on the 26-man roster. I mean, I'm sure that there will be a move made, and I'm almost certain it will be Danny Jansen. I mean, it's sad to say he's been a long-time catcher for the Blue Jays, and sadly, he's had to split time a lot. And I feel like if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be, if he's the primary catcher and used almost every day, I think he'll have a phenomenal year. And yeah, sure. I mean, send him, if the Padres want to win, sure. The San Diego fans vote Blue Jays when we do the all-star voting thing. Why don't we help out a National League West team? I mean, San Diego, they have such good young talent. I can't picture Jano in a Padres jersey, but sure, why not send him there? I mean, free up some room, see what we can do, man. But I'm certain that Gabriel Moreno and Kirk are guys, because yes, Jesse, I've thought about it too, man, and it sucks to say. I mean, but that's business, man. That's how it's got to go sometimes.
I think out of those 6 teams I mentioned too, the only ones that might prefer Moreno over Jansen would be Arizona, or it would be Milwaukee. But think, like, if we trade Jansen for San Diego, they've got some pitchers. They might get up. Like, they might want to dump Blake Snell's contract. We could use Blake Snell on our team, right? The White Sox have some outfielders. Maybe they want to get rid of who's the guy, the young guy who was drafted with Vladdy, who was Rookie of the Year voting with him. I forget his name off the top of my head, but they have some good outfielders there they could kind of part with. Maybe you could get like a Liam Hendricks. There's kind of buzz about the White Sox wanting to trade him. Milwaukee, they say right now they're not trading Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff, but wait and see on that one. I think that might change as we get down to the offseason. And Cleveland obviously has guys like Tristan McKenzie, Shane Bieber. They could be wanting to trade one of those guys as well. And a good Canadian guy, Cal Quantrill from Cleveland. So they have pitchers they could offer us. And Minnesota is a different one. Max Kepler seems to be an interesting name that could fit this outfield really well. And then they have a few pitchers. Well, they're trying to acquire pitchers, so maybe not so much trade one, but Luis Arraez. There were rumors that Minnesota might be willing to dangle the batting champion this year to try to get something. And if he's available, I could see the Blue Jays maybe trying to get him in a catcher's trade.
I mean, Luis Arraez can play multiple infield positions. That's always helpful. Also, Jesse, Luis Robert, perhaps the outfielder you were drawing a blank on.
Yes, it was him, and there was the other one. Let me look this up right now.
You do that, and I'll tell you what I think, Jesse. Because yeah, I do like a lot of those. Cal Quantrill's another interesting one. I also like Plesac and Tristan McKenzie too. There is a lot of good young arms that still have team control in Cleveland. The Guardians have a really interesting roster makeup. I feel like they really lack position players, and I feel like they could win. I think they could win 60 games 2-1 or 3-2 this year. I mean, it's incredible. I would like that too, man. But the Snell contract is whatever. I mean, he doesn't have more than 3 years left. I don't know his makeup now, but I'm sure it's not more than 3 years. I would do Blake Snell. We know how good he was with the Rays, and he's just coming off, I mean, I guess a collapsible year for the Padres, you could call it that. Wheels really fell off towards the end. They were a really good pitching staff for sure. I mean, you don't always want to see your rival. You don't want your rivals really in your jerseys, but Jesse, we're here. It's kind of slim pickings, though, brother. I mean, that's really kind of the way we're looking at it. I mean, we're talking about trading for a guy that was a big time rival here in the American League East 5 years ago. And here he's now pitching for, the Padres pitching for the Padres and, talking about, possibly acquiring him. So I don't know, man. It comes back to we didn't make moves right away. So we're not scraping the bottom of the barrel, but we're about midway right now. And I really hope before Christmas we get a gift here that is nice. A Blue Jays acquisition. I think that is really what needs to happen. I mean, we're not getting teased. We're not getting cheesed with this. There is work being done in the front offices. It's just the results haven't come in yet. Results are always nice, Jesse. You'll always want to see something happen.
Eloy Jimenez was the name I was thinking of. And I'm sure there were some of you listeners screaming at your radios right now because you probably knew exactly who I was talking about. But that's a name. Keep an eye on if the White Sox do decide to sour on him. And Riley, that's all I got for the rumors and the buzz right now. I do think it is important that the Jays are going to get somebody. And I think it's important that we spend our money. If we don't spend our money on huge, like say Nimmo goes to the Giants, say Rodon goes somewhere else, say Kodai Senga goes somewhere else, like the Blue Jays might actually look at using that money to extend a Vlad, a Manoah, a Kirk, a Bo Bichette, because they got to do something with their money, and maybe extending the core pieces we already have might not be the worst idea.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the least, Jesse. That's the least we can do right now. I mean, you see these deals. Tatis, who was suspended for PEDs, has a crazy deal right now. There's going to be other deals take off here. Wander Franco, another one too. Like, these young guys getting big deals, and here we have Bo and Vlad, and Manoah can be a guy too here shortly who has earned his place in the MLB as an ace. I mean, there should be definitely extension talks. If we're not going to put money into someone else, it's got to go into our boys who came up through our own system, our drafted guys, the guys that you want to be watching with this team for 20 years, man. That's what's got to happen at the least, Jesse.
I agree with you, man. And let's look. There's still a lot of offseason left. We can't stress that enough, but it sure does leave a sour taste in our mouth leaving these winter meetings. But I do want to get on to some news and notes, Riley. And Riley, the Rule 5 draft happened just this past day. Now, the Blue Jays didn't select anyone to their major league portion, and no team selected any Blue Jays prospect to the major league portion of the roster. However, the Blue Jays did make a minor league selection. We selected catcher Kike Rios, and they did lose former first-round pick Logan Warmouth to Seattle. There he is going to be on the AAA roster for Seattle. I do like how the Blue Jays got some catching depth here. It still seems even more likely that we are still going to trade one. But yeah, any thoughts on those guys? Maybe losing Logan Warmouth or the addition of Kike Rios?
I mean, I don't know much about Kike Rios.
Yeah,
I mean, Logan
he didn't
Warmouth
hit well.
was
His
kind
stats
of like
good.
I mean, Warmouth is a guy who's been in our system for a while, and former first-round pick, but a guy who is not a major league quality player, a guy who can play middle infield, and a guy who can play some outfield. So an interesting build there. But yeah, I won't. Definitely a guy who's going to do really well in the. He's a career minor leaguer. He's going to do well wherever he goes in the minor leagues. He's going to be a journeyman. He's going to make a very good living playing minor league baseball, and good for him, man.
Yeah, 27 years old, never hit more than 10 home runs in a season. He's been a below average minor league player since 2019. So guy didn't fan out as a top end prospect, but we're rooting for him. Let's hope he gets a cup of coffee with Seattle at some point this year. Some more news and notes, some awards to give out, Riley. We're giving out the Buddies. I guess that's what we can call it, the Buds and Blue Jays Award. But these ones are some real ones. First one, Jordan Romano won the Tip O'Neill Award, which is the award for Best Canadian Athlete. He's the third Toronto Blue Jay ever to win this award, with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. taking it home last year. So congratulations to you, Jordan Romano. And one of our Sportsnet writers, Shai Davidi, he won an award as he took over the national president of the Baseball Writers Association of America at the winter meetings. And in fact, with that title, Shai Davidi will be the one who speaks at Cooperstown during the Summer Hall of Fame ceremony. So good to see a Blue Jays guy going in with the announcer there. And on track, I guess, Fred McGriff, a former Blue Jay, the crime dog, as he's called, got elected into the Hall of Fame due to the Veterans Committee here. And Riley, a little note, while he was on the podium giving a speech for his Hall of Fame thing, he sang some of the OK Blue Jays theme songs. So Fred McGriff, happy you're in the Hall of Fame, man. Congratulations, and let's go Blue Jays.
Crime dog, man. What an all-time baseball nickname for sure. A big presence at the plate, a big power first baseman, lefty bat, the kind of guy you want on first base. I don't even have to look it up. Fred McGriff, 492 home runs in his career. Don't ask me how or why I know that. It's always been a number that sticks out. It just seems like, I mean, hey, it's not quite 500, and I know he's tied with someone. I don't know if it's Mel Ott or someone else. I have the file's a little bit sticky in my memory right now, but yeah, Fred McGriff was one of the best left-handed power hitters throughout the late 80s, the 90s. I mean, he was very old when he retired as well. I mean, hey, you know what? He definitely, I'm surprised he didn't get in the first 10 years.
Yeah, me
Fred
too.
McGriff is for sure an absolute Hall of Famer, man. And that's not even my opinion. That's just a fact, man. That's just a fact that Crime Dog is a Hall of Famer.
Fred McGriff tied with Lou Gehrig at 493 home runs there. So top 30.
93. Oh, I was one off.
Yeah.
Okay, one off. Woo.
Damn good guess.
And you know what? I was going to correct myself too, but you know what? I stuck with and it wasn't Melot. Let's go with maybe a more famous guy. Yeah, let's go with the Iron Man himself and Lou Gehrig.
Hell of a thing there. Some few more news and notes here, Riley. The Blue Jays are still trying to get an all-star game. Now, the Jays will have to wait until 2025 or 2027, but we've talked about it before. It's time to get the Blue Jays an all-star game. I think our last one was 1989. It's been time, especially with the renovations coming to Rogers Center this year. I really do think they want to get their chance in at an all-star game. Another thing. Yeah, go ahead.
1991, Jesse.
91 was it?
Set up our next 2 years, which were World Series 91, 92, 93, very legendary years. Also, as we spoke in past episodes, Jesse and I need to play in the celebrity softball game as well.
Agreed.
So remember to like and subscribe as well, because there's only a limited time to get this thing done. I mean, Jesse and I need to be in that, turning double plays against these high-end celebrities. And they move the fences in. And I mean, Jesse, we just let's hit some taters off. I don't know who could be pitching there. Who knows, man? But anyways, Kerry, I just wanted to
Geddy Lee of Rush. I'd love him. He's a big Blue Jays fan. So let's have him throw in one and let's hit a dinger off Geddy Lee. That sounds fun.
I want to hit one off another Lee. I want to hit one off Spaceman Bill Lee, former Red Sox pitcher.
God, that would be great. That's like our goal of Buds and Blue Jays here is like, if we can build this up till we can get to the celebrity softball game, that's a success. We've done it. We've hit the big time if that ever happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Good stuff. Some more news and notes. The Blue Jays are looking for a uniform patch sponsor. So Riley, how about this? We take our Buds and Blue Jays logo on our podcast. We call up Ross Atkins or Mark Shapiro at Rogers and we say, you know what? We've got the perfect ad logo for your team. And it's basically a Blue Jay already. We just throw our Buds and Blue Jays logo up there so we can have the Blue Jays themselves repping our show. What do you think?
I mean, it's my nice little foam background here, as you see, Jesse. Yep. Buds and Blue Jays. I mean, there's no other way to go. I mean, keeping things simple. Also, a nice little red ribbon Budweiser would look good too if they don't want to go that way.
Sure.
Of course, we want to keep things good. What I don't want to see is like a big fat like RBC CIBC logo. I think that would look dumb. And also, if they're looking for one, I mean, aren't we the Rogers Center? I mean, to me, it would make the most sense to have a Rogers crest, use the same red in the leaf on our logo. But hey, that's just me. What do I know about baseball uniform designs or anything like that? I'm not the guy making the calls here.
Problem is Rogers is greedy. They want their money, so they're hoping some other company will give them money just for the logo space. Whatever. Not surprising there. A few more news and notes, though. Vladimir Guerrero was asked if he's going to play for Team Canada during the World Baseball Classic. And although he did not seem disinterested, it did kind of get the sense that if he does play in the WBC, it's going to be for the Dominican Republic. And I don't think that really surprises anybody here. And the Major League Baseball had its first ever draft lottery. So the Blue Jays will pick 20th overall in the MLB draft. The top 5 will be Pittsburgh, Washington, Detroit, Texas, and Minnesota, with your Oakland A's coming in 6th. And Riley, the Blue Jays have picked 20th overall once in the Major League Draft. Can you tell me what player they took with the 20th overall pick in the first round?
Can you give me a year, or would that be cheating?
No, the year was 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And we took a position player or
we took a pitcher, right-handed pitcher.
In 2009.
The tough one.
Did we take Drew Hutchinson?
No, you were close. It's the same kind of type of pitcher.
Honestly, man, I'm drawing blanks right now. Those weren't exactly great times. If it's not Drew Hutchinson, I want to hear the name and I'll probably go, oh, of course.
We took Chad Jenkins, who did make some time with the Toronto Blue Jays. He pitched 100 career innings total with the Blue Jays. He amassed a grand total of a 3.31 ERA in those 3 seasons, all between 2012 and he only pitched 3 innings in 2015. So mostly between 2012 and 2014, pitching mostly out of the bullpen. Didn't strike anyone out. Had a few strand rates, but finished with 0.2 WAR in his career. So kind of a flame out, but little trivia for you on Chad Jenkins being the only other 20th.
I like that. I like it. Let's hope we can do a little bit better with our 20th overall pick in this upcoming draft.
The Jays have picked 21 a lot. I think JP Arancibia was a 21st round pick. There were a few others, and the Jays have picked 19 a lot. Vernon Wells, maybe 19. I could be wrong there. Maybe, I don't know who else. I'd have to go back and look it up. But yeah, only the second time we've gotten the exact 20th pick. And I've got some news on the Blue Jays players here. Luis Rivera says he ran into Jose Barrios in Puerto Rico this week. And his quote was, he looks like he's in great shape. I think he's going to be ready for 2023. He's going to be a better pitcher last year. I know that, and he knows that. We're looking forward to him having a better year next year. So offseason report sounds good about Jose Barrios. Ross Atkins has talked him up. I think we're going to get a better year from Barrios next year.
I know we're going to get a better year from Barrios. Baseball is a game of numbers. It's a game of averages. And there are certain rules and laws and regulations in baseball. And the baseball gods have come to me in a dream and said, Riley, there is no way Jose Barrios finishes with a 5 ERA in 2023. And I said, thank you, baseball gods. What will he finish with? And they faded into the darkness. So it was maybe not a 2 ERA, maybe not even a low 3s ERA. Maybe we get an average on par on maybe the track of what he was doing in Minnesota kind of year, which would be fantastic, Jesse. In comparison, he finished his first year with the Toronto Blue Jays very, very strong. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think he had a solid 3 ERA or something very close to those
something lines. I think it was below 3 even.
Oh, well, perfect. Even better. And then last year was sort of a disaster. So the fact of the matter is too, Jesse, he could have been fat, eating a bag of chips and walking down the street. And you can't, oh yeah, it seems great. He's going to be amazing in 2023. I mean, hey, we'll see what happens with Jose Barrios in this upcoming year, but I know, I mean, it's more than a feeling, Jesse. It's just the rules of baseball. There's no way that's going to happen. He's not going to have another as bad of a blow up as he did last year.
And just one more update. We don't have one on George Springer for a while. Last we saw him, he was taken off on the stretcher. He had a concussion. Manager John Schneider had said George Springer is working out in Florida. He is recovering from his elbow surgery, and then added, quote, if you saw him at the gym, you wouldn't know there is anything wrong with George Springer. So it sounds like he's going to be all systems go and ready for spring training, which is great news from George Springer.
We need George Springer firing on all cylinders. Whether we get 140 games out of him is still way up in the air, Jesse, but we know we win games with George Springer in the lineup. And the modern day, he is the best leadoff power hitter, especially of this generation for sure. And I think he's a great addition to this team. He's a leader. He's a hell of a ball player, man. I love having him in Toronto. And he won in Houston. He was a winner in Houston, and he should be a winner with the Blue Jays.
Amen. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Well, Riley, that'll do it for our episode here today. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Let's hope by this time next week we have some transactions to talk about, because I really, really thought we'd have something to come on the air about this time. But hey, such is life. Doesn't always work out that way, but we know moves are going to get done. Something's going to happen here. So let's hope by this time next week that'll happen. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. Leave us a 5-star review on those podcast streaming platforms. And Riley, anything else to add before we get out of here today?
Nope. I think we covered it. Moral of the story, girls and guys, is that there is still a lot of a lot of off season to go before spring training, but it will creep up on you faster than you think. I would really like a move done before Christmas. It's a present that I can't open, but will still be filled with joy when I receive it. And I fully anticipate that, Jesse. That's all I have. My concern level will go up very, very slight every single day until that happens. And I won't push that panic button until after the first pitch of spring training has happened and the outfield remains the same and the starting pitching staff looks the same.
All right. We will take our temperature next week, see how we're feeling about that. But until then, guys, be well, stay warm, and let's go Toronto Blue Jays.
Thanks, guys.